Hi, how are you? So I am back again to give you some insight into chapter 2. So this is a little bit about the history of our social welfare system. The point of this is to give you some framework of understanding our systems and the history of the profession and serving people, and some of the theories and ideas that we have, which you will see pop up in the future classes. So let's begin. So what do you know about the social welfare system? So think about it for a minute. Is there anything that you know? Has this been talked about before? Let's test your knowledge a little bit. So it's not really Thursday, but sometimes we did a little bit of trivia. We're not going to do this together, but here's some information I'd like for you to go through. The questions on this are important. So who is the founder of the Hull House in Chicago, and who was the Progressive Era leader? This should definitely be done after you've read the chapter. So who is it? The founder of the Hull House, Jane Addams. Jane Addams is an amazing pioneer in our field. So it is absolutely important that you are familiar with her. The Hull House has been created now into a museum. So if you are ever in Chicagoland area, you could go visit it and gain some information. And I think it would be fantastic if we were to get some money together as a club to go and do a tour. I think understanding our roots and history as a profession is really good for our own kind of understanding of where we are now and where we're going and why we do what we do. What was really amazing about Jane Addams as well is that she was very high class. Her family was friends and would oftentimes be at the White House. So with, if you are of a family of that time period who would hang out with the President of the United States, then it's apparent that you have a high social class level, but her understanding of the issues of poverty of immigrant women and children, impoverished families, is that the only way to help them was to be them. So she lived in a home, which was the Hull House, and provided services from the inside. So she didn't go to her house every day and then come there to work. They lived there. That was their community. And so from working together, in collaboration with the people they were serving. So it is a model. The settlement houses is a model. So if it's interesting for you to gain a little bit of insight into something, settlement houses would be really good for you to look into. What are the core values of social workers? That is in the Code of Ethics. So you will have the Code of Ethics in your class modules, and it is something that you're going to tie into future work. So I do want you to be familiar with it. Our ethical values are based on service, social justice, dignity and worth of a person, importance of human relationships, integrity, and then competence. So do review them. There's more lengthy definitions when you follow the link, and the code should be in your modules as well. In 1917, who published the book Social Diagnosis? Mary Richmond, again, another fantastic pioneer of our profession. And I won't go into detail. I can't remember if I cover it coming up, but why was it important? Why was this book relevant in that time? Casework, her book, she constructed the foundations of the method of our professional. So looking at understanding how we do casework and the relevance of it. So she is considered and described the mother of social casework. So that is relevant. Many jobs do use the casework model for how we do things. What are the 3 levels of social work practice? Do you recall this one? This is something that's going to come up in so many discussion boards. What we call our levels are our micro, meso, or meso, and macro level. You'll see meso spelled differently in different places, but micro is, think of the individual, interpersonal work. I work with somebody, I work with, their family, and you've got those relationships. Meso, think of your communities, your neighborhoods, your schools. So I am a person, if I'm working with a person who has a need, but they also belong to the community of Maryvale, right? And so the school of whatever, Phoenix Union High School, or they are a member of the ROTC or the soccer club, or, so the meso is those smaller, tangible levels of networks. And then macro, think of your systems. So think of the healthcare system, right? Policies, global issues, right? International associations, bigger systems are our jail system, right? These systems are these macro level things. So in course, all of the issues we talk about, we can look at. Poverty affects people. It affects communities, right? And there's systematic reasons we have poverty. So any issue we look at in this class, you can dissect in these ways. And I want you to gain competence in that. So the discussion boards will have you practice that. A micro level solution is helping someone gain a GED, gain some work skills, whatever that may be. Meso level, maybe we need to address community poverty by supporting with more resources. We implement boys and girls clubs. We create food drives, or we do activities that we teach people about the resources accessible at a community level. And macro level, maybe we look at where we're failing in our policies. Like we have low minimum wage. We stop people to gainful employment when they come out of jail. So maybe we change policies that would enable people to have more meaningful, gainful work opportunities. Charity organization societies, which you'll see in your book as COS, started where and what was their objective? They were in England, right, in the 1800s. So a lot of our models were based off of English models. And so you'll see that it really was charity work. So taking a look at that is important. Who is the principal founder of the profession of social work, as well as the importance of our professional education and really honing that in? Mary Richmond. And so it's really important to see that she did, looking at this School of Social Work at Columbia University. That was the very first School of Social Work. And so how we have to have a profession. This isn't just anyone who, because it really did, the church was a big part, volunteers and women who wanted to give charity for the unfortunates is what it was called. But it is a profession, and we have a code, and we have, ways that we work, casework, for example, and we have, training. And so how do we then take that and professionalize what we do and really be very careful with, not anyone can call themselves a social worker. Just because you work with people that have needs doesn't mean you're a social worker. And so that's really important. The whole house. So read more about it. There is a wonderful link for you to go through, and it is really interesting. And there is this, important progressive era for women at the time period. Worthy and unworthy. So what is this? So I want you to understand that. So worthy. So people who were worthy of our help are, you're a widow, poor orphan, you're elderly, someone with a disability or, different ability, but of course it was labeled differently. So it's beyond your control that this has happened to you. You're worthy. And so the unworthy, those who then people stigmatize more. Well, if you're able-bodied and single and not working, or if you're a woman and you're not married, shame on you. Then you're not worthy because you should just go get married. Or, so this idea sticks through how we see social issues today still. And it's been something that's kind of been there, and it consistently has been there. So I want you to be aware of that. I'm not saying I agree, disagree, just be aware of these terms. For school social work, I already mentioned that. Hello. So social welfare reform was passed, let's see, So the aid to families of dependent children. So there's a lot of different reform. And what I want you to pull away from this is that politics matter, and your votes matter, and your awareness of what's going on matters. Social work is not in isolation, and politics is part of what we do. We have to know, because if we all of a sudden stop allowing certain people to apply for services, we will have a huge ripple effect and impact. And we need to know where the resources are, who's getting services. We are advocates, so we have to be the voice and the broker for people who are underserved and vulnerable and do not have a voice. How do we do that if we have no idea what's going on? And so local politics and federal politics implement, so they impact all of the policies that we have, which directly impact our lives as people. And so when we have Republican or Democrats in office, whether it's state, whatever level we're talking about, we will see a decrease of services and funding to social services or an increase. And primarily it has been Republican-led decrease to social services, Democrat-led, we see an increase to services. And then due to that, we have a ripple effects of what happens. I'm not telling you what to think. I want you to be aware of a connection. Okay, what of the following does not represent institutional services? Residual welfare is essentially seen as being in place purely for the poorest of society. So food stamps is an example of residual. So we've got institutional services and we've got residual services. And I'll go into that later on. Birth of social work profession in the late 1800s, early 1900s. We're not doing that. Okay, so social welfare, basically, have you gone to a library? Have you done FAFSA? Then you have applied for welfare services. Welfare has a stigma, it has a name, but it's so much bigger than what everyone else thinks it is. So I want you to be aware of that. The goal of welfare is to fulfill financial, social, health, recreational requirements of society. It's not meant for this, lower echelon. And I think that we've begun to kind of put people in a corner. But city recs, libraries, student loans, there's all different levels of what welfare services are. It's not just your food stamps or your state Medicaid services. So what's important here is that we have this residual view and institutional view. So we can call it conservative and liberal, right? So we either blame the victim. Cause of a client's difficulty is in their own malfunctioning. So if you're an alcoholic, it's your own fault. If you are depressed, it's your fault. Just get up. That's the idea of what that means. Charity for the unfortunate versus not trying to label and stigma people for receiving funds, that it is entitled to you because it is our job as the government to support our people. So everyone is entitled to help. That's why we've got services like the library, like these things that are there for everyone. And difficulties that people have are largely beyond their control. So we don't tend to blame people specifically for all of the misfortunate things that happen to them. So again, conservative, it's your problem, it's your responsibility, your behavior is your issue versus having our support in government to help safeguard human rights and to, there's a lot of different kind of viewpoints to understand. Again, not telling you what to believe, but just understand this different point of view. So, history is important. We've changed enormously in history. So that's relevant to how we live today and some of the issues that we do see. I'm speeding up fast because I have like a minute left on my before the timer goes off. This is a fantastic slide. It gives you history so you can go through any of the icons and find information about social work history. There are some fantastic videos for you to watch. They're not long to, again, give you information about this historical perspective of social work. So the orphan train movement is something I want you to review and it's not in your textbook, this is something additional. And again, the Whole House, the orphan train movement. And I want you to be aware of other little things like social work and like child welfare came about because animal welfare came first. We were worried about animals' safety and welfare and what was happening to them. Yeah, we had children working, right? And child labor laws were not an issue back then. And so our child welfare services were then modeled after humane society. So it's interesting to think about that and to see where we are. So I hope you've enjoyed and can go through the material and have a fantastic chapter 2 week.